Hi and welcome. My name's Graham Cruz and I'd just like to take you through a very brief presentation on penetrating new export markets with new distribution partners. So my name's Graham Cruz. Ideally, the first thing I feel you need to do is to identify and classify your opportunities in terms of target markets and target distributors, as the world is a very, very large place and you can't practically manage all of it at the same time. So to me, there are things like existing large markets that you should be in. USA, Europe, Japan, current markets with top GDP. You then got potentially large markets going forward in the future, things referred to as the brick and the mince economies, where going forward they're predicted to be the next big markets that you might want to enter now. Alternatively, you might have a hold market where you've had a presence that for one reason or other you may be losing, i.e. your distributors moved on or closed down, that you still wish to maintain. Or alternatively, you may have target distributors that these may or may not operate in the markets you've identified up above, but they may, for example, cover several smaller markets that as a whole make them a distributor that you would like to target. But there's several ways to help support and identify and classify your opportunities. Again, the web is a wonderful source of information. And here, for example, is a list of countries' real GDP and their real growth rate. There are other things, such as, for example, if you're looking at healthcare, published reports that you can access, such as the World Medical Fact Book. Again, these can be analysed in greater detail for the dynamics of your market. So for healthcare, the average age, personal spending on healthcare, whatever the drivers are for your key markets. Again, these give you indicators to help you prioritise and classify the markets that are ideal for your business. Again, once you've specified the target markets or have a list, you then do what I think you should do is a gap analysis. Do you have a distributor in this market? Are you happy with them? Yes. If not, it's an area you need to target. I would also then step back and go, okay, you might want to go into that market, but are there additional barriers to entry that will make this not such an ideal target market? Are there regulatory restrictions? Are there trade issues? What are the exchange rate fluctuations? So, for example, here's a report on exchange rates that I did in June of 2014 that shows how dramatic some of the exchange rates have been. Are there import tariffs? So, for example, on incinerators, these are a list of import tariffs from EU countries or favoured nations, most favoured nations, that you need to factor into your considerations. Again, on each individual market that's specific for you, are there channels to market? So, for example, on healthcare, are the pharmacies all focused into 3 or 4, or are they very, very diverse? What are the healthcare structures? What's the healthcare insurance? What are the regulatory rules for that specific market for your industry? Having been through all of that, you then need to find and identify potential distributors. And a good way of doing that initially is a UKTI OMIS report, which is an Overseas Market Introductory Service report, which is an excellent starting point. But there are others. You can get a reference from other clients that you're dealing with, or contacts you've got, or people who meet at trade shows. They can all. You then need to select suitable distribution partners. First thing, having got your target markets and prioritise these, I would arrange to visit the target markets. Again, I always think a UKTI trade mission is very helpful, especially as for SMEs this can be subsidised. And ahead of that, I would arrange to meet potential distributors during the visit. Several of these could have been identified in the OMIS report. Ahead of visiting these, I would commence dialogue with the distributors I'm intending to visit. Now that can be via Skype, email, telephone, whatever's easiest for them. But to me, this is a key stage of initially assessing their professionalism and their desire to work with you. I would ask them to do a report for me, and here's an example of something I've done before, on what they feel about the local market, what they think about the potential, the channels they would focus on, what the regulatory issues they are in that market that they're aware of. Equally, the other products they've got in their portfolio to make sure that they complement your range. There is no clear answer. If they're too big, you may simply be an item in their catalogue with limited focus. Too small, and they may not have access to the market's key contacts that you're after. but I think their response, their timings, the details, the ease of communication are all very, very key factors. And then during the visit, I try and make sure I visit them at their offices to make sure they say what they are. It does what it says on the tin. Equally, if you need translation to be there before you go, use your own translation rather than be dependent on their team doing it, because you won't get an independent assessment. During the meeting, I'd review the comments that they'd sent through to you earlier on the market, and I'd start to complete a distributor review form for assessment later. And again, here's a similar sort of form. So during this, having reviewed the market and what they think the potential are and the regulatory issues are, I'd start to develop an initial action plan with them. So what are their business plan? Agree on the initial year, for example, predicted plans and predicted sales. Factoring in what are the timings and lead times you need to be aware of. Are there key pharmacy, for example, in this instance, range reviews, or are there sales meetings that you need to tie in with? Who are they going to target? And again, agree an action plan on who and when they're going to arrange these meetings. What sales and marketing support are they going to need from you? Are there any specific commercial tools they're going to need? E.g., are they defending a price in their market relative to local competition? What are the technical and regulatory requirements for that market, if there are any? And again, this could well impact directly on your business plan. If it's going to take 6 months to get approval, you won't sell anything for at least 6 to 9 months. So factor that in. Determine what documentation we required. Again, what are the lead times for each of these markets or this market, and understand with them what help and support they can give you and what help and support they will need from you. Other factors to consider: will you need to do staff training? And again, what else are you expecting from them? Do you want them to supply you with a monthly forecast, for example? And if so, how much notice do you want on that? When do you expect it through? So everything's clear and up together. Again, following your visit, I would then review all the facts and feelings. How did you get on with them? And I would follow that up any agreed actions from your meetings, so sales and marketing tools, technical and regulatory, etc. I would then finalise your decision on who you're going to select as soon as you can do whilst there is momentum. So, do you need to do an agreed distributor agreement? And if so, clarify what that covers. Are there exclusivities, channels, regions, targets, forecasts, etc. So it's all clear for everybody and you maintain momentum. And again, I like to agree if you want to do joint calls with their key clients, if that's applicable. When are they going to be done? I find these an ideal way on a two-pronged focus. Firstly, it shows my distributors how I would deal with the clients on a professional method and how I would use my sales and marketing tools to get the message across, and the approach that I would use, which I find is an excellent training approach for the distributors, but equally illustrates to both the distributors and the end clients your willingness to work together. I then like to establish a regular review process. What performance are you going to check against? So, they're going to arrange diary dates. Did they do that? Have they submitted the forms for the required regulation? Did you submit the information that was needed on time? Identify any issues that they face and agree actions to resolve these together. Your distributor is an extension of your sales team. So if they've got an issue, you have an issue. And again, review the performance against the business plan and the forecast. Is everything on track? Is it ahead of schedule or is it behind schedule? And if it is behind schedule, what is causing it and what actions can you take to resolve these? Again, keep an open and regular dialogue. Again, whichever format suits the pair of you. That could be email, Skype, telephone, or visits, or a combination thereof. Again, constantly support them with any issues, queries, or questions they face. Give them the support they need. And if need be, develop specifics for their market. I also feel it's important to have an agreed exit plan for both parties, a kind of prenup. When you're starting out, so you both know that you get what's expected of each other and how much effort you're both going to put in, but equally, if it doesn't work for whatever reasons, you both have the right to leave, a kind of prenup as mentioned. The key to me to this is if you do it for 6 months and the distributor says, no, I've had enough, I'm leaving, it's going to take me a year to do it, you haven't soiled that market. You can still return to that market with an alternative distributor because you maintain the relationship professionally with your initial distributor, and they're not left with a nasty taste undermining any activity in that market again going forward. Also, there'll be additional factors to consider. Some of the larger markets will require more than one distributor. For example, China, Brazil are huge places. But a key, in this instance, it's vital, I feel, to minimise the conflict and competition between your distributors. The reason for this is if they're competing against each other for the same business, they will likely devalue your brand. They will also risk dropping the price. Equally, if they drop the price, both parties will be making less margin, therefore their attraction to you and to be your distributor will diminish. So I would minimise that conflict by either separating it by regions or, example, routes to market, whichever is applicable for your business. The other thing, you've been through your target markets, but there will be non-drive markets. You still need to deal with these in the same professional approach, but possibly a scaled down version. You might not want to go and visit and go out of the way, but if they've ticked all the boxes, it's incremental business in a non-drive market that is all good for you. Again, these non-drive markets can be very opportunistic add-ons for your business. And I always think it's worth adding an add-on onto your website to make it clear that you are seeking professional distributors. They might come from your drive markets, they may not do, but it's always a good way of raising. So, I hope that was clear. It was a little bit rushed, but I hope it was concise for you. And it was only a very, very top-line overview. If you have any questions or queries, please don't hesitate to contact me. My name's Graham Cruz, and all the contact details are there below, and they should all be hyperlinked. Thank you very much.